prepare for a rude awakening.
Shimon Kefa wrote, "Our beloved brother Shaul hath written unto you some things hard to be understood." Can you relate with Peter? Yes. Some of the things that Shaul writes are very difficult to understand because we're a lot like Peter. We're fishermen. We work for a living. We have not been raised in the privileged lifestyle of Shaul, who spent most of his life in Jerusalem, studying the Torah at the feet of the most respected teacher of his generation, Gamliel. Kefa continues, "They that are unlearned and unstable wrestle the things that Shaul has written to their own destruction, as they do also the other scriptures. In what are they unlearned and unstable? The Torah from which Shaul is constantly quoting. If you are ignorant of the Torah, you cannot fully understand the scriptures of the New Testament. You will wind up wrestling or twisting the scriptures to your own destruction. And if you teach twisted scripture, you will end up destroying those who listen to you." History has shown that if a people are ignorant of the Torah, they will isolate numbered sound bites called verses out of the New Testament, strip these statements completely out of context, and then cloister themselves into 4,000 denominational camps that more closely identify with men than they do the Messiah. Shaul said it best, "How is it that you have taken it upon yourself to divide up into little self-serving religious cults? Some say, I am of Paul. Others, I am of Apollos. Others, I am of Kefa, of Luther, of Calvin, of Zwingli, of Wesley, John the Baptist. I was not crucified for you, and no pope ever got up from the dead." Well, okay, I'm paraphrasing a bit, but that's what he'd say today. Kefa continues his warning, "Beware lest you also, being led away with the error of the wicked, fall from your own steadfastness." Rudimentary explanation. The word wicked refers to the twisting of a candlewick. When you twist the scriptures around your own agenda and attempt to manipulate others by implying that your personal scheme is the will of God, you are doing what the Bible calls witchcraft as a work of the flesh. This is great wickedness. What is the error of the wicked? Just as the Messiah said, you do err not knowing the scriptures. Of which scriptures does the Messiah speak? Right, the Torah, the written oracles which are able to make one wise unto salvation. In the end of the book of Acts, Shaul cried out, "Men and brethren, I am a Pharisee, the son of a Pharisee." He wasn't ashamed of his upbringing. The Pharisees were ultra-conservative. Both Nicodemus and Joseph of Arimathea, devoted disciples of Yahshua, were Pharisees as well. As a Pharisee, Shaul was taught according to the strictest manner of the Torah. By the time that Shaul was 20 years old, he would have memorized every single word of the Torah verbatim, Bereshit through Devarim. That was a basic requirement to study under Gamliel. But Shaul said that he was more zealous for the Torah than any of his peers. He was one of the most brilliant young men in his generation. This is the very reason that Kefa states that Shaul's writings are difficult and can only be accurately understood from the context of the Torah, the written oracles of Yahweh. We have spoken briefly about the written oracles of God, but the scriptures also speak volumes concerning the living oracles that were committed to Israel's keeping. This is the communication that must be lived generation after generation in the land of Israel. The living oracles are the Kadosh Mikra, the holy convocations, the feast of the Lord. The feasts are prophetic shadow pictures of things that the Messiah must fulfill, It is not an option. The fourth day after the crucifixion of Yahshua, two of his disciples stormed out of the hiding place where the disciples had been sequestered. Cleopas and another disciple slammed the door behind them as they scuffled their way to the village of Emmaus. They were through. They were so dejected they left Jerusalem during the feast. That is depressed. But put yourself in their place for a moment. They had sold their family businesses, given all their possessions to the poor, and now they were more destitute than those to whom they had distributed their goods. Their lives were ruined. At one time, they really believed that Yahshua was the promised Messiah. But now it appears that they were taken in by a false Messiah who died and left them penniless with no hope. As they rehearsed their mutual woes, a stranger approached them from behind. "Excuse me, gentlemen, but why are you so depressed? And what is this morose conversation that you're having?" Cleopas answered, "Are you some kind of stranger in Jerusalem? Haven't you heard about the things which have come to pass in these days?" The stranger, the disguised, resurrected Messiah, said, "What things?" As if he didn't know. As they walked to Emmaus, they began rehearsing everything they had just seen that week. The stranger kept prodding them. "What else did you see? Can you recall any more detail? What happened next?" They concluded their heartbroken recitation, "And we trusted him. We trusted that he was the Messiah." The stranger finally interrupts. "O fools and slow of heart to believe all that the prophets have spoken. Ought not Messiah to have suffered all these things of which you have just spoken, and then entered into his glory?" And beginning at Moses and all the prophets, he expounded unto them in all these scriptures the things concerning himself. He laid out exactly in every detail these things that they had just enumerated mile after mile as they walked. He showed them in the scriptures that the Messiah had to fulfill every detail of the spring feast of the Lord. He had to fulfill the role as Messiah ben Yosef, the suffering servant who would make the atoning sacrifice for the sins of man. He showed them that the Passover sacrifice, which was foreshadowed when Abraham offered his son Isaac on Mount Moriah, was fulfilled in what they had just witnessed this past week in Jerusalem. Chills of reality shook them. They had to hear more. When they got to Emmaus, the stranger acted as if he would continue on, but they compelled him. "Please, please, please stay with us." At the table, the stranger took unleavened bread in his hands and blessed the Father with the same blessing that Melchizedek, the Melech Tzaddik, the righteous king, blessed when he served bread and wine to Abraham. He blessed with the same blessing that all Israel blessed the Almighty each time they broke bread on the Sabbath. He blessed with the same blessing that he blessed when he broke bread with those disciples just before his arrest in Gethsemane 4 days earlier, when he lifted the bread to heaven and said, "Baruch atah Adonai Yahweh, Eloheinu melech ha'olam, hamotzi lechem min ha'aretz." Blessed are you, Lord Yahweh, our God, King of the universe, who brings forth bread from the earth. I am the bread of life. I am the Father's provision that was brought forth from the earth. This blessing and this breaking of the bread, which you have been doing year after year, century after century, is a Kadosh Mikra, a holy rehearsal that was put in place by the Melech Tzaddik. This bread represents my body, which will be broken for you. From this day forward, as often as you do this, do it in remembrance of what I am about to do for you. Now the Lord, at the table with two of his hurt and despondent disciples, raised the matzah to heaven and said, "Baruch atah Adonai Yahweh, Eloheinu melech ha'olam, hamotzi lechem min ha'aretz." This is my body, which was broken for you. He broke the bread, laid it down, and disappeared before their eyes. At that moment, they understood that he was the resurrected Messiah. Cleopas cried out, "Did not our hearts burn within us as he walked with us by the way and opened unto us the scriptures?" They took off on a dead run back to Jerusalem. They hammered on the door that they had slammed behind them just hours before and began to stammer out the events that had transpired since their afternoon departure. But before they got the first coherent sentence out of their mouths, the stranger appeared in their midst and said, "Shalom Aleichem, peace unto you." And then, starting at Moses and through all the prophets and writings, he taught them that the Messiah must fulfill the written oracles in the Torah and the living oracles, the prophetic shadow pictures of good things which were embedded in the feast of the Lord. During his time of ministering to the public, Yahshua did not allow anyone to broadcast that he was the Messiah. When those who were possessed of a demonic spirit identified him and cried out, "I know who you are the Messiah, the Son of David," he rebuked the spirit and did not allow them to proclaim his mission. Just weeks before his crucifixion, he asked his disciples, "Who do men say that I am?" One responded, "Eliyahu." Another, "Yohanan ben Zechariah HaKohen, your cousin John the Baptist." "But who do you say that I am?" Kepha replied, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." You are blessed, Kepha. Flesh and blood has not shown this to you. I did not show this to you. My Father in heaven has shown this to you. But don't tell anyone, because I must go up to Jerusalem where I will be killed by the Gentiles. The Messiah's first coming was a covert mission. Why? Shaul observed that if Hasatan had understood that the Messiah's death would be the fulfillment of the Passover sacrifice, he would never have crucified the Lord of glory. If the religious leaders of Israel could have known that the actual plan of redemption was detailed in the spring feast of the Lord, then Satan could also have recognized the plan and preempted God's strategy. Satan's and the religious system's ignorance compelled Satan to accomplish the very thing that he had hoped to destroy. But now, after his resurrection, the Messiah himself proclaims his victory. He announces his accomplishment and then opens the understanding of his disciples. The fulfillment of the spring feast demonstrates a pattern that makes the future fulfillment of the fall feast much to be anticipated. In upcoming episodes, we will explore these beautiful shadow pictures of good things to come and see how our Creator has told us the end from the beginning in the Feast of the Lord. I'm Michael Rood, inviting you to join us again next time for A Rood Awakening. And I'll see you when the smoke clears.